Here's where it gets really interesting. The paper introduces space debiasing as a novel approach, and it leverages one of the most robust findings in cognitive psychology, the spacing effect. So what is the spacing effect, and why does it matter so much for how your brain learns and, crucially, unlearns? Have you ever found yourself sort of stubbornly holding on to an idea, even when, new evidence completely dismantles it?
Oh, absolutely. It's a common experience.
Or maybe wondered why a lie, once you've heard it, seems to just cling to your mind, making the actual truth feel, well, less convincing.
Mm-hmm. That persistence is fascinating.
So what if the real secret to a mind that's strong, that's resilient against misinformation, isn't just what you learn, but how, and crucially, when you engage with that information? Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place where we unpack your sources to bring you the most important nuggets of knowledge, really helping you become truly well-informed. Today we're diving into a really fascinating concept. It's called space debiasing. We're drawing deep insights from a paper titled Space Debiasing, Time, Truth, and Resilient Thinking.
Sounds intriguing.
Yeah. Our mission today is to explore how strategic, timed engagement with information can fundamentally change how your brain processes truth, how it resists misinformation, and ultimately helps you make more, rational decisions.
So looking at the timing aspect.
We'll be exploring the brain's own natural learning mechanisms and discovering how we can cleverly apply them to build more accurate and resilient belief systems in our incredibly complex information environment. So let's start with a foundational truth, right? Our brains are incredible efficiency experts. They're constantly sifting through mountains of data.
Just an unbelievable amount.
Totally. And to manage this, we rely heavily on these mental shortcuts or heuristics. Now, these shortcuts are brilliant for making quick decisions most of the time.
They have to be, otherwise we'd be paralyzed.
Right. But they also have a downside. They can lead to predictable, systematic errors in judgment, cognitive biases.
And these aren't conscious choices we're making.
No, not at all. They're largely automatic, unconscious, which makes them incredibly tough to spot, let alone reduce, just by, being aware of them.
Awareness isn't enough, unfortunately.
And here's the kicker. Even highly trained professionals, people you'd think would be immune, right? They can fall prey to these patterns. It just goes to show how deeply wired they are.
Mm-hmm. What's particularly fascinating here, I think, is how these inherent biases leave us so vulnerable to misinformation, especially in today's. Well, it's an overwhelming information landscape, isn't it?
It really is. Information overload.
Yeah. The challenge isn't merely that there's a lack of accurate information out there. It's fundamentally about how the human mind actually processes, retains, and evaluates data, especially when it's repeated or, crucially, when it clashes with what we already believe.
So that conflict is key.
It is. Our brains often prioritize making quick judgments over exhaustive, detailed analysis. It's just faster. This means that for debiasing to truly work, it needs to be structural, almost systemic. It has to leverage the brain's own natural processing mechanisms, rather than just asking us to try harder consciously.
It's kind of unsettling, isn't it? Our own brains, designed to help us, can sometimes be our biggest weakness in this environment.
They evolve for a different world, perhaps?
Maybe so. Let's unpack some specific biases, then, that are incredibly relevant to how misinformation takes root and just stubbornly persists in your mind. First up, there's the illusory truth effect, or ITE. Have you heard of this one?
Oh, yes, it's a classic.
Right. This is the phenomenon where simply repeating a statement, even if it's totally false, makes it feel more truthful over time.
That feeling of familiarity.
That's it. It's almost as if our minds confuse familiarity with truth, that little internal voice saying, oh, that sounds familiar, so it must be correct.
Even if you consciously know better sometimes.
Yeah, and what's truly insidious is that even minimal repetition, the paper says, sometimes just 2 instances, can significantly boost a statement's perceived truth, and it can even override your prior knowledge.
That's the really scary part, overriding what you already know.
It is. The paper points out this is often due to processing fluency. Basically, information that's easy for your brain to process just feels more true. It's not about logic, it's about your brain being tricked. Confusing familiarity with truth. That's a core vulnerability right there.
A real glitch in the system.
Then there's confirmation bias. This is our powerful tendency to, actively seek out, interpret, and remember information that confirms what we already believe.
While conveniently ignoring.
Exactly. Ignoring or downplaying anything that contradicts our existing views. This creates a perfect little echo chamber for misinformation, doesn't it? Because we're far less likely to critically check information that already fits neatly into our established worldview. It just reinforces our own bubbles.
We all do it to some extent.
We do. And finally, the continued influence effect, or CIE. This one is tough. It refers to how we can still rely on misinformation even after it's been explicitly corrected.
The correction doesn't always stick.
Right. You'd think a clear correction would fix things, but efforts to retract misinformation can sometimes be surprisingly ineffective, or in some cases even backfire, inadvertently strengthening the misbelief. It's like trying to erase chalk in the rain, it just smears, you know? The paper highlights that the effects of debiasing are, and I quote, never permanent and may wear off with time.
So it's not a one-shot deal.
Definitely not. It requires ongoing engagement. The order of information also matters immensely. Pre-bunking, which is correcting information before you're even exposed to the misinformation, well, that can be effective.
Okay, getting ahead of it.
Yes, but debunking, which happens after exposure, can actually be even more potent, especially if it's paired with an explanation of why the misinformation appeared in the first place, or if it provides a plausible, true alternative.
Ah, giving context.
Right. This idea of reconciliation is key. It helps you integrate the new, accurate information by actively resolving the conflict with that prior false belief. It's like giving your brain a coherent story to replace the old, wrong one.
That makes sense. Replace, don't just contradict. And we also know that if your brain is under high cognitive load, like if you're stressed or distracted when you first encounter information, corrections later are far less effective.
So you need the mental bandwidth.
You do.
Yeah.
This tells us debiasing isn't passive. It's an active process that needs sufficient mental resources. You have to engage with it.
Okay, so if our brains are so easily tripped by repetition and so resistant to corrections, is there any real hope? What if the very way our memory strengthens over time, the way it becomes resilient, actually holds the secret to combating these deep-seated biases?
That's the promising angle.
Yeah, here's where it gets really interesting. The paper introduces space debiasing as a novel approach, and it leverages one of the most robust findings in cognitive psychology, the spacing effect. So what is the spacing effect, and why does it matter so much for how your brain learns and, crucially, unlearns?
Right. The spacing effect is a fundamental principle in learning. It shows that long-term learning and memory are dramatically enhanced when learning events are distributed over time. We call this space practice. It was first observed by Hermann Ebbinghaus way back in 1885.
Wow, that long ago.
Oh, yeah. And it's consistently one of the most reliable findings in experimental psychology. It holds true across all sorts of timescales, from mere seconds to years, across all developmental stages, and even in other species.
Other species, too.
Which suggests it's not just some trick, but reflects fundamental principles of memory itself. It's baked into how memory works.
That's wild. So what exactly is happening inside our brains during this spaced learning that makes it so incredibly effective? What are the mechanics?
Subscribing is the only way to keep the cows from learning TikTok dances. Oh, oh my God.
The stakes have been raised.
I know, it's like we have to save the world.
Yeah, we have to protect the internet.
From dancing cows. Well, there are several interconnected cognitive mechanisms at play, each strengthening the memory in different ways. First, there's memory consolidation and reconsolidation.
Correct.
When you first learn something, that memory is fragile, like wet cement. Spaced repetitions provide the necessary time for this memory to consolidate, to harden into a more stable, long-lasting form.
Okay, so time helps it stick.
Right. But it gets even better. When you revisit that memory through spaced repetition, it doesn't just get retrieved. It undergoes reconsolidation.
Reconsolidation? What's that?
It means the memory trace isn't just pulled up from storage. It can actually be strengthened and potentially even modified or updated during that retrieval process. Your brain is actively refining those memories over time, making them more robust.
So it's dynamic.
Very dynamic. And sleep, just as an aside, plays a crucial role here too, helping reactivate and reprocess those memories during consolidation.
Right, sleep is critical for memory. Okay, so it's not just retrieving a memory, it's actually resculpting it, making it stronger each time we recall it. That's truly fascinating. Our memories are far more active than we often think. What else is going on?
Next, we have encoding variability. Think of it like building different pathways to the same destination in your mind. If you only ever learn a fact in one setting, say, while reading a textbook at your desk, you build one mental pathway. But if you revisit that information in a slightly different context, maybe while discussing it with a friend, or applying it to a completely new problem, your brain creates new interconnected pathways.
More connections.
Exactly. These varied contexts create more distinct and diverse memory traces, which give you more potential ways to retrieve that information later. The more routes you have to that memory, the easier it is to find, and the harder it is to lose. It builds a richer, more robust memory network.
Makes sense, like knowing different routes to get home.
Good analogy. Then there's retrieval difficulty, often referred to as desirable difficulty. This one's a bit counterintuitive, but incredibly powerful.
Desirable difficulty sounds odd.
It does, but space practice usually requires more effort to retrieve information compared to just cramming it, right? Because some forgetting has occurred.
Yeah, you have to think harder.
Well, this increased effort, paradoxically, strengthens the memory trace. It's like building muscle. Just looking at a weight doesn't make you stronger. You have to lift it, strain a little, to build that muscle.
Okay, I get that.
In the same way, when your brain has to work a bit harder to pull a memory out, especially after a little forgetting is set, in that very strain makes the memory connection stronger, more resilient, solidifying what you've learned.
But wait, isn't forgetting usually seen as a bad thing when we're trying to learn? How can losing details actually make us smarter or more resistant to bias? That sounds completely backwards.
It does, doesn't it? But that brings us neatly to the fourth mechanism, forgetting and abstraction. The time intervals between spaced learning allow for a natural degree of forgetting, particularly of irrelevant details.
So you forget the fluff.
Kind of.
Oh.
And this isn't a memory failure, it's actually beneficial because it promotes the abstraction of the truly relevant features and the underlying concepts. It helps you see the forest for the trees, basically.
Getting the bigger picture.
Right. It leads to better generalization of knowledge. This paradoxical role of forgetting suggests that a degree of decay is necessary for deeper understanding. Your brain effectively prunes less relevant details, allowing the core concept to emerge more clearly and become more broadly applicable. It helps clear the mental clutter.
It's incredible how many brain functions contribute to this spacing effect, from solidifying memories while we sleep to forcing us to work harder for better retention, even using forgetting. But the real deep dive question is, how do we take these fundamental learning principles and aim them squarely at the problem of misinformation and bias?
That's the crux of space debiasing.
Because the benefits clearly go beyond just recalling facts, space learning profoundly impacts your acquisition and generalization of complex new concepts. Studies show children learning science, adults acquiring skills, they perform significantly better and transfer those skills to novel situations more effectively with space learning. So what does this all mean for tackling cognitive biases and misinformation? Space debiasing, as the paper calls it, is the strategic application of these principles, all these fascinating brain mechanisms we just discussed, to actively reduce biases and enhance critical evaluation.
Moving beyond the one-off correction.
Right. It aims to move beyond those immediate, maybe ineffective corrections, transforming debiasing from a singular event into an ongoing dynamic process of cognitive refinement that actually reshapes your thinking over time.
And the effectiveness of space debiasing stems from its engagement with several of those key cognitive mechanisms we talked about. First, delayed processing and analytical thinking.
He's slowing down.
Basically, yes. Many biases are driven by that fast thinking, those automatic, intuitive judgments our brain quickly makes. Space debiasing actively encourages slowing down our thinking to reduce their influence. This deliberate delay gives your brain crucial time to shift from automatic pattern recognition, which can easily lead to biased conclusions, to more effortful analytic thinking.
How do you do that practically?
Well, techniques here include consciously asking why information is presented the way it is, deliberately gathering more details before jumping to a conclusion, or even using softening language in your own thoughts, like perhaps, or it seems like, to allow for more temporal wiggle room. It's like a cognitive workout for analytical thinking, strengthening the neural pathways for critical evaluation.
Okay, a mental workout. What's next?
Second, strategic re-engagement and reconsolidation of accurate information. Just as spaced repetition strengthens correct memories, space debiasing involves representing accurate information or counter-arguments at strategic intervals.
Spacing out the truth.
Precisely. This triggers that powerful memory reconsolidation we discussed earlier, allowing accurate information to be strengthened and integrated more deeply into your long-term memory. This is particularly potent when you're provided with alternative, true explanations that reconcile the conflict with existing misinformation.
That reconciliation again.
It's vital. Effective debiasing, then, leverages your brain's amazing capacity to actively shape and refine memories over time. It's not about fighting the old memory head-on, but replacing it with a stronger, more coherent, accurate one.
Got it. What else?
Third, metacognitive awareness and disruption of the fluency truth link. Remember the illusory truth effect. It thrives on that intuitive feeling of familiarity being mistakenly interpreted as truth.
Right, the familiarity trap.
Space debiasing aims to cultivate metacognitive awareness. That's essentially the ability to step back and observe your own thinking process, to deliberately question that feeling of familiarity.
Thinking about your thinking.
This can be fostered by prompting yourself to foreground the reasons behind a belief, instead of just relying on automatic recognition. Think of the foreign language effect the paper mentions. Engaging with information in a less fluent context, like trying to process it in a foreign language, can force you to slow down and reflect more, reducing your reliance on intuitive, potentially incorrect solutions.
Interesting. Make it harder to process.
In a way, yes. It shows how disrupting that feeling of effortless cognitive fluency can actively promote debiasing by forcing a more analytical mode of thought. It's about making your brain work for the truth, not just passively receive it.
Okay, one more mechanism.
Yes. Fourth, leveraging forgetting for misinformation decay. The time delays built into space strategies allow for the natural decay or forgetting of irrelevant or misleading aspects of misinformation.
Using forgetting again, but this time against the bad info.
Exactly. If misinformation is something you want to supersede, then strategically introducing delays before representing corrections allows the false information's initial salience or fluency to diminish. This makes the subsequent accurate corrective information far more impactful because it's not directly competing with a freshly activated incorrect memory.
Clear the ground first.
Kind of. It suggests a nuanced approach. Sometimes a delay allows the cognitive landscape to clear, making the ground more fertile for accurate information to take root during subsequent spaced re-engagement. It's like letting the weeds wither a bit before planting something new and strong.
This sounds incredibly powerful, really harnessing how our brains work, but it also raises an important point you touched on earlier.
Your journey to deeper understanding starts here. NavigatingBeliefs.com. Sign up, it's free.
So it's not just learning, it's an adventure.
Yeah, like a quest for knowledge.
The effectiveness relies heavily on careful consideration of timing and cognitive load, right?
Absolutely critical. There's likely an optimal interval for re-engaging with debiasing information, just like for general learning, not too short, not too long. Finding that sweet spot is key.
And the cognitive load part.
And critically, corrections are much less effective when your brain is under high cognitive load. You truly need available mental resources for that deeper processing. It's not a quick fix you can do while multitasking or stressed out.
Okay, that's a really important practical constraint. So after all that, how can you, the listener, cultivate more resilient and accurate thinking by incorporating these space debiasing principles into daily life? This isn't just theory. These are practical strategies.
Let's break some down.
Yeah. For individuals, consider scheduled information review and critical reflection. This means applying spaced repetition not just to facts you want to learn, but to critical thinking itself.
Applying the principle more broadly.
Right. Instead of passively consuming information once and moving on, actually schedule periodic re-engagement with complex topics or potentially biased information. This might involve revisiting news articles you've read, consciously challenging your own personal assumptions after some time has passed, or reevaluating sources after a deliberate delay, say an hour, a day, maybe even a week later.
Give it some breathing room.
Yeah. For example, if you encounter a controversial claim, you could resist forming an immediate strong opinion and instead schedule time later, put it in your calendar even to research it, consider alternative viewpoints, and reflect on your initial reaction, noticing how it might have changed with time and distance.
That takes discipline.
It does. Another incredibly helpful approach is using principles from something called street epistemology for self-debiasing and dialogue. Have you come across this?
I have, yes. It's a conversational technique.
Exactly. It helps people critically reflect on their own reasoning, often through gentle questioning. It's calm, curious, respectful, fostering open dialogue. Its key principles align beautifully with space debiasing, like slowing down to actually question that feeling of familiarity and prompting you to foreground the reasons behind a belief. This directly counters the illusory truth effect.
Focusing on the why of the belief.
Right. You can apply these questions to your own beliefs, asking yourself things like, how did I actually come to believe this? What evidence would genuinely change my mind? Or what are alternative explanations for this situation? This form of self-interrogation, especially when spaced out over time, can effectively disrupt those automatic biases.
A kind of spaced self-reflection.
Yeah. And finally, for individuals, think about utilizing metacognitive tools or slow thinking. This means consciously employing techniques to create cognitive distance from your immediate reactions.
Building in pauses.
Exactly. These could include something as simple as counting to 10 before responding in a heated discussion, practicing mindfulness to observe your thoughts without judgment, or deliberately asking yourself why a particular thought or feeling arose. It means gathering more information before forming a judgment, and even using softening language internally, like thinking, it seems, or perhaps, to allow for more temporal wiggle room in your thought process.
Keeping possibilities open.
Right. That foreign language effect serves as a great analogy again. Engaging with challenging ideas in a way that forces more cognitive effort can enhance metacognitive awareness and reduce bias. This might mean actively seeking out diverse perspectives, or even trying to articulate a strong counter-argument to your own deeply held belief, forcing a more effortful and analytical mode of processing.
Challenging yourself deliberately.
Now, flipping it, for communicators and educators, there are equally vital strategies here too.
How can they apply this?
Consider timed and explained corrections. When correcting misinformation, the research suggests it's most effective to deliver the correction after initial exposure, but the critical part is that this correction must be accompanied by a debiasing message.
Not just the correction itself.
No. It needs to explain why the misinformation initially appeared or provide a plausible, true, alternative explanation. This helps reconcile that cognitive conflict and gives the listener a coherent, accurate narrative to replace the false one.
Providing that alternative story.
And repetitions of corrective messages should be spaced out. But with extreme care, you don't want to inadvertently boost the familiarity of the misinformation itself by repeating it too much alongside the correction.
Tricky balance there.
Very. The focus of spaced corrections must always be on reinforcing the accurate information and weakening the misinformation's influence, primarily by focusing on the accurate alternative. That strategic use of reconciliation in corrective messaging is paramount. It's not enough to simply repeat the truth. The spaced corrective messages must provide a compelling alternative explanation that makes sense of the initial misinformation, allowing the brain to update its mental model more effectively and prevent that stubborn continued influence effect.
Making the truth more compelling and sticky.
And finally, for anyone communicating complex ideas, educators, journalists, public health officials, think about fostering sustained engagement and critical inquiry. Educational curricula and public information campaigns should integrate spaced practice for critical thinking skills into their very fabric.
Building it into the structure.
Yeah. This means encouraging delayed re-engagement with complex or controversial topics, prompting learners or the public to revisit and reevaluate information over time. Such strategies can include structured discussions, follow-up questions, or prompts for self-reflection days or weeks later. Providing resources for spaced learning like flashcard apps for factual recall can be beneficial, but it's equally important to offer tools and prompts that encourage critical reevaluation of beliefs, not just memorization.
Guiding the process, not just delivering facts.
It represents a significant shift from simple information delivery to active cognitive process guidance. It's quite profound, really. So space debiasing emerges as a truly powerful framework. It elegantly blends the robust, time-tested principles of the spacing effect from cognitive psychology with the critical, urgent need for cognitive bias mitigation in our world today.
Bringing those two fields together.
Yeah. This scientifically grounded pathway offers us a way to enhance our long-term memory for accurate information, sharpen our critical evaluation skills, and ultimately build genuine resilience against the pervasive and often insidious influence of misinformation in our lives.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the profound effectiveness of space debiasing really lies in its emphasis on continuous, timed engagement with information and critical reflection, rather than just passive consumption.
It's an ongoing effort.
It really is. Combating cognitive biases and misinformation isn't a singular event you can just check off a list. It's an ongoing process. It requires cultivating new habits of mind habits that prioritize deliberate, spaced evaluation over automatic, intuitive judgments. By fostering these cognitive disciplines, you can become a more discerning consumer of information, and communicators can design far more impactful interventions. Ultimately, this could contribute to a more informed and maybe even a bit wiser public discourse.
A hopeful thought. This truly raises an important question for you listening right now. Thinking about your daily routine, how you consume information, What strategies for space debiasing do you think would be the most challenging to implement in your own life?
Where would the friction be?
Right. And perhaps more optimistically, which ones do you think you could actually start trying today or this week to cultivate more resilient thinking? We genuinely love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, what seems practical to start with?
Join the conversation in the comments section below. Thank you for diving deep with us today. We really hope this exploration helps you navigate the complex information landscape out there with greater clarity and hopefully confidence.
Until next time.